Good evening and welcome to the AM AI FAIM webinar once again. Today is an auspicious day for us in India as we celebrate Guru Purnima. On Guru Purnima, we commemorate the goodness of our spiritual gurus and teachers and thank them for enlightening us. In our webinar today, we have two professors who will be enlightening us on why data science will continue to drive innovation in the new normal. They will explain to us the same through live cases. I am pleased to welcome the two distinguished professors to our webinar, Dr. Chris Monterola and Dr. Erika Fille Legara. Just a brief introduction of both professors. Dr. Chris is the head of the Aboitiz School of Innovation, Technology and Entrepreneurship, called ACIP, and holds the Aboitiz Chair in Data Science at AIM. He was recently conferred the academician title by the National Academy of Science and Technology, NAST, the highest recognition by the Philippine Science Body. Dr. Erika is the Program Director of the MSDS at AIM. She holds an Aboitiz Chair in Data Science at AIM. She was one of the recipients of the NAST Outstanding Young Scientist Award recently. Over to you, Erika and Chris.
Hi.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nikhil. I'm just gonna. Hello, everyone. I heard that everyone from the Pan Pacific is here, different countries. So this is overwhelming, but we are very happy to finally engage. Thank you to Nikhil for inviting us. It's always a delight to work with or engage our alumni, which is Chris and I, when we joined AIM, we weren't really from the business sector, but this is a good experience for us. So yeah, again, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening from the Philippines. I'm not so sure what time it is from your places, from your countries. I know that in India, Nikhil, it's 4 p.m. Yes, 4:30. Okay, yeah. So Chris will be talking about the cases, actual cases that we have handled at Access Lab and at AIM. And the idea here is for you to truly appreciate how you can use data science or artificial intelligence in your own organizations. We're gonna bring it down to make sure that, it's not something that you feel your organization cannot afford or cannot go into because it's too high tech. But so what we will do is we're gonna unwrap it for you. Right, Chris, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add in my presentation. Okay, so the title is Leading with Data Science in the New Normal, the Case of Analytics, Computing, and Complex Systems Access Laboratory. I'm not so sure if some of you are aware that Chris and I, prior to joining AIM, we were scientists for the Singapore government for around 6 years. And it was only when Jikyeong contacted me back in 2017 that I was convinced to join AI. It's really her leadership and her vision that convinced me to move from Singapore, which is a very advanced society, and come back home to the Philippines. That's why I really love this quote. The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. This resonates with me very much. Because like what I mentioned, in Singapore, we talked a lot about smart cities as early as 2012, right? So we sort of like saw the future there in 2012. That is our current future now. And this quote is not only true for technology, for AI or innovation. This is especially true now that we have COVID. If you look at other countries, for example, if you're successful, then your future is going to be South Korea. We've seen how South Korea dealt with the pandemic. That could be our future if we copy what they did. Another future for COVID would be Italy, right? So this is why this quote is very powerful. And if you've already seen the future from other countries, then you could leverage on that. Like for our case, Chris and I, our experience at the Agency for Science, Technology, and Research has been quite rich. And what we hoped to do was to bring it to the Philippines. And we're very grateful that AIM, your alma mater, and of course, the current president and dean gave us that opportunity to start something new and spark something new at AIM and in the Philippines. I'm not so sure if many of you are aware that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, right? I'm sure you've heard a lot about this. I see Anwar nodding, so I'm pretty sure you've encountered this, but there are 9 pillars around the fourth industrial revolution. So you have big data analytics. You'll be hearing about all of these 9 pillars in the next few years. Autonomous robots, cybersecurity is a big thing nowadays, especially because we're now going online. System integration, additive manufacturing, augmented reality, modeling and simulations, which is what Chris and I also build for various industries, including the Ayala Corporation. Internet of Things is also part of the fourth industrial revolution, and cloud computing. However, as you would guess, especially those who are in tune with the latest developments in the field of AI, one of the really, of all these 9, the biggest drivers for innovation are big data and artificial intelligence. This was an article from MIT Sloan Management Review back in 2018. And remember, AIM was way ahead of this. As early as 2016, 2017, AIM was already thinking artificial intelligence. So in this same article, there was a survey done across more than 3,000 executives worldwide. The survey question was, do you think as a C-level executive, artificial intelligence will have a large impact on your products and processes? So that was the question. And of the 3,000, 63% of them, this was back in 2017, 63% of them said that, yeah, we believe that AI will have a large impact on our offerings. And 59% of them said that AI will have a large impact on their processes. Again, note that this was in 2017. Only 1 year later, they conducted the same survey across over like 3,000 executives as well, and looked at how the number changed. So in that survey, already 91% of the C-level executives around the world believe that AI will have a large impact in their companies in terms of products and processes. And this is why the economists called data as the new oil. I'm sure many of you have encountered this, but it's not often that they say that data is a strategic asset, which it is, really. Right now, if you want to remain competitive, I just concluded a business analytics course with our executive MBA students yesterday, and we talked about becoming an analytics competitor as an organization. If you want to be an analytics competitor, to truly compete using data and analytics, you need to have these 3 ingredients. You have to have advanced modeling and simulations capability within your organizations. And Chris and I can help you on this one, as we will show later in the cases that we've worked with. And if you're going to have a data-driven science within your organization, it has to be enterprise-wide. You couldn't just have it like stuck within a certain vertical. For example, just the finance or just the marketing. It has to be enterprise-wide. And finally, leaders of analytics competitors are very data-driven and analytics-driven leaders. And these are not just those who are familiar with certain terms. They really know data science. They might not know how to program, but they can differentiate across models. So these are examples of analytics competitors would be the Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and all those big other companies that you've been hearing about. Of course, the digitally native like Facebook, Amazon, all of these are analytics competitors. Why are we talking about this? Why do we talk about competing in analytics? Well, we are now, whether or not we like it, we are now living in a very data-driven world, right? And what this means is that innovation is accelerated. There are new paradigms. There are new business models. And if you don't innovate as a company, you die, right? So take a look at these numbers here. In 1937, the lifespan of companies, the S&P 500, back in 37 was around 77.5 years. In 2019, they collected the same data, and guess what the number is now? 12 years. Imagine, from 77.5 years to 12 years. So unless you're truly a competitive company, you're going to die maybe within 10 to 12 years. And this was in 2019 before COVID. And I'm sure now, even in India, I know that in the Philippines, we have a lot of companies that are closing because of COVID. So you really have to be much, much more innovative than, you know, the typical normal pre-COVID days. But on the flip side, so there's a lot of companies closing right now, but on the flip side, many organizations, okay, are now transforming digitally. They are forced into digital transformation. This idea is relevant in this specific talk because when we talk about digital transformation, we're really talking about more and more data. And I'm just going to go back to this slide here. Again, data is the new oil. And like oil, if you don't process it, if you don't properly manage it, right, it's practically garbage. Okay, so that's why we tell companies, like, if you have a lot of data, you have to do something about it, right? Even at AIM right now, we're using Zoom almost all the time. That is data generated almost every day. The question is, how can we use this data to improve our teaching process, right? To improve the experience of students in the classroom. We can definitely take advantage of the data. So our goal at AIM, at A-Site, are these three. Now, Chris, feel free to add later. We want to help organizations compete on analytics, and we will show that, how we do that in a very tangible and concrete sense. We want to help enterprises innovate through data and technology. And finally, our students and hopefully our alumni, okay, if we can have maybe SEAL courses, we want to equip present and future leaders with the needed data science skill. Because really, right now, it's not only, data science is not just a nice to have skill, but it's now a must have skill, right? And you can see that at A-Site. I'm very happy that you had this conversation earlier, Nikhil and Chris, about A-Site. So A-Site is the latest and newest school at AIM. It houses 3 programs: innovation, entrepreneurship, and data science. And we always would have a lot of collaborations across these different programs, and the collaborations truly create wonderful innovations, as we will show later. And of course, the 4th aspect of A-Site is our advanced analytics laboratory that's company facing. This is our way of helping organizations in research and development, data science, and artificial intelligence. It's also housed under A-Site. A-Site essentially is anchored in developing business leaders and entrepreneurs who are anchored in technology and innovation. Why is this the case? If you look at the top organizations, we call them Gandalf: Google, Amazon, Netflix, DBS in Singapore, Apple, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you look at their founders or their leaders in the organization, have a look at this slide. They're all coming from science and technology courses, right? So if you are going to teach our entrepreneurs, especially during this time wherein we're all digitally transforming, we're all living in the 4th industrial revolution, right? If entrepreneurs can take advantage of data science, AI, and cloud computing, then they're much more equipped to innovate and compete on analytics. Aside from our academic programs, of course, Access Lab, and Chris will talk a bit more about this. Like what I mentioned earlier, this is now hardcore, real, tangible research, collaborating with actual companies. We can maybe even discuss later if your organization is interested in solving a use case or two, using data science and artificial intelligence, right? And I'm just gonna give you a brief preview of some of the projects that we've worked on in the past 2-3 years. So it really ranges. The good thing about data science is that it cuts across industries, from site planning to finance and economics to retail marketing and sales and HR analytics. So all of these projects, I think, Chris, will you be able to discuss All of them, or maybe just some parts of them, right?
Yeah, maybe just some parts of them. But,
Yes.
yep.
So
But
that
we will be happy to. I'll be happy to answer during the Q&A questions related to those industries.
Yeah. Of course, aside from this, thank you, Chris. Aside from this industry-driven projects, as part of AIM, we have to be also academically competent, meaning we have to publish papers. In the industry, it's innovate or die. In academia, it's publish or perish, right? If you don't publish, then maybe you're not as scholarly. So aside from teaching, aside from doing actual R&D, we also have to publish. And in my one-on-one meeting with Jikyeong, she just pushed me a little further to produce more papers. And I'm happy to let you know, our dear alumni, that we, Chris and I, and the whole of Access Lab have been publishing in high impact index journals. If there are professors here in this chat room, you will be familiar with all of these journals, and we're really happy that we are publishing here. So what does this mean? It means that AIM can be a source of original ideas globally. So that is something that we're truly proud of. And in the next few slides, before I give the floor to Chris, I'm just gonna show you some photos, proof that we are engaging the big organizations like this one. This is the Ayala Group, and if you know the Ayala Group, these are all the C-level executives across the business groups. It's like meeting with Tata and all of its business units, right? And this is when we presented our final project to the management committee of the whole of the Ayala Group. So we're quite proud of this. And I'm sure Nikhil is very familiar with this because he's always in touch with AIM. We have been gaining a lot of industry support, A-Site in particular, and data science as well. You just look at these organizations, these companies, they're willing to sponsor students, right? Even when we just launched MSDS at that time. So we're getting full sponsorships from these organizations. And this truly created a buzz. The $10 million donation from Aboitiz, this would help our scholars as well and some of our equipment and facilities within AIM. The Aboitiz in particular mentioned that they donated this amount because they want to push further data science and innovation in the country, right? So these are really good signals that AIM is doing something great in analytics. And as you will see later in actual use cases. When I visited Bangalore and Mumbai, I think last year, we presented to the alumni that the data analytics, the data science program is actually in the top 3 across all of Far East Asia. We should all be truly proud of this. And we were very happy because the year after, we are still in the top 3. So something that we're truly proud of. We are even better than all the other schools in South Korea, Jikyeong, in Japan as well, and even in Singapore. Our analytics program is better than the Singapore management universities, at least in this Edu Universal ranking, okay? So, and finally, you will see here that AACSB and the Times Higher Education have acknowledged the innovation that we've done at AIM. Another thing that we should, I think that alumni would be proud of because of the innovations that we have introduced. So the next slide is my last slide. I always try to remind our collaborators when they approach us. Usually they approach us like, hey, Erika, you know what? We have a lot of data. And what should we do with this data? And we tell them that that is the wrong way to approach the problem, right? When you want to enter into a data science project, you have to start with the question in mind. What is the question that you want to solve? What is the use case that you want to answer so that you can improve or make efficient the processes or the products that you have in your organization? So start with the question in mind and everything else will just follow. And what do I mean by this? Chris will show you later. So Chris,
Okay, thank you. Can I share my presentation?
of course. If you have questions, feel free to type in the questions in the chat box, or I don't know, Nikhil, what's your protocol here?
They can type in the chat box.
Okay, great.
So you can have a look at it also.
All right, we'll
Okay,
do.
thank you, Erika. And from Erika's talk, I will now proceed with the problems that we have solved using data science. And as Erika mentioned, the first step in doing data science, in using data science, is understanding the question. So I will start by mentioning, if we want to understand how data science can be used in this new normal, what are the challenges of the new normal, and what are the innovations that we have done with respect to data science. If you are present in my talk, I think that was about 2 days ago, in the AAAIM association, a good portion of my slides here are actually included in that presentation. I have just added more cases of the things that we've done in taxes for the purpose of understanding how data science can indeed be useful for this new normal. So let me start by mentioning that one of the more famous quote, but I don't really know exactly whom this quote should be attributed to. Some says it's Winston Churchill, some says it's Sun Tzu, but apparently it has been known throughout human lifetime that a good crisis will always present opportunity. And as an example, the bubonic plague in mid 1300s to late 1600s, where there are about 50 to 100, 200 million deaths, corresponded also to the what we refer to as the Renaissance period. They needed a source of information because people are in quarantine, they cannot go to street, they are scared that they will be contaminated or they can contaminate other people. The result is that we have invented the so-called printing press, and therefore the newspaper started. Workforce was depleted, and as a result, we have invented and accelerated mechanization technology to speed up production, especially of essential goods. We needed a source of delight, and then we produced Da Vinci, Newton, Michelangelo, Botticelli, Donatello. We have created new ways of looking at paintings using oil, etc. We needed to resolve intellectual conflicts, and during this time when education was widely transformed. And it was not just transformed, but it has spread how we should do education that is anchored on science, anchored on inductive reasoning, etc. So my talk for today, let me start by mentioning the challenges that we are facing because of COVID-19. And I think most of these challenges are things that you already know intuitively. First one is health is compromised, not just mental health, not just physical health, but also mental health. So as of the moment, we are nearing 11 million cases globally. Well, this is still way smaller compared to the Spanish flu or the bubonic plague, but during this time when we discovered so much about medicine and anything that we have improved significantly on the way we treat patients, having more than 500,000 dying because of this disease is really something that we are not prepared to mentally. The total number of recovery is high, but the total number of deaths is very high too, around 500,000 to date. And we expect domestic violence to soar by 20% during lockdown. So again, this will impact mental health. Of course, the more vulnerable will be children and women. And the economy is compromised. So I don't need to explain this, but these are the numbers. About 1.6 billion of the total 3.2 billion are at risk of losing their jobs, especially those in the informal sectors that in the previous pandemic, they are not a significant number, but now these informal sectors those that are not employed by a company, those who created jobs on their own. This includes entrepreneurs. A good portion of entrepreneurs are at least of losing their source of income. Those who will be losing their full-time are projected to be around 305 million. Yeah, maybe just to give a perspective on this, globally, we have not seen this number of potential job loss since the Great Depression. And in fact, the Great Depression lasted for 2 years. The numbers that we are seeing who are losing their job currently happen only in the last 3 months. And of course, we now across 186 countries out of the 213 countries currently are out of classroom. I don't think we have experienced in our lifetime, at least in the last few generations, a change in education so pronounced the way we are experiencing it now. So these are the gaps. These are the problems that we need to fulfill. And my presentation for today, I will be demonstrating the 3 main innovations from data science in this current normal. But I will be highlighting the work that I have done specifically in the Access Lab. So that I will give 3 reasons, but I will be focusing on the third component, specifically those work that we have done in the Access Laboratory, the data science lab that we have at AIM. So one reason why, to some extent, data science is helping the current situation is on the medical front. It has been shown that if we use artificial intelligence, it improves the ability, for example, to test patients by more than 50 times. So it started by to determine whether you are COVID positive. Initially, you need to wait few days, and then it was reduced to hours, and now down to several minutes. AI also accelerated vaccine development. Okay, from 5 to 10 years, according to Bill Gates, actually 10 to 15 years, according to many. Historically, it has been from 10 to 15 years before you can develop a vaccine. In the last 20 years, to within just 12 to 15 months. So initially, they're saying that this is a moonshot to develop a vaccine within 12 to 15 months. But by the end of July, 3 companies are projected to start with their phase 3 of vaccine testing, vaccine trial. And the one that seems to be leading it is actually a team comprised of a pharmaceutical company in China and that of United Arab Emirates. They have, initially it's Moderna, but now it seems that they are leading the development of this vaccine. And 17 now is in phase 2. So for all intents and purposes, it seems that the world is optimistic that by sometime next year, we will have an available vaccine to fight COVID-19, record fast. And data-driven peer-reviewed publication surges by more than 100,000 papers versus last year. And most of these are driven by data science. Now, what is the good thing about this is that we now know more about our body. We now know more about all this, these so-called zoonotic viruses that are impacting us, and not just us, but also our those who produce the essential product. Like for example, pork, beef, etc. Pigs, cows, etc. And rapid development of AI-enabled product allow us better now to manage mental issues. So there has been a lot of development, especially on the so-called natural language processing, to help in those that are having mental health issues, especially those who have a very good chance or have very high chance of becoming mentally depressed all the way to committing suicide. Now, this is another welcome development, and as a result of COVID-19, it becomes critical that this triple helix, the government, academia, and industry, collaborate. And prior to COVID-19, one of our advocacy has always been to lessen the gap between the government, academia, and the industry. We learned that the best way to do that, to make sure that industry will be able to create value, academia will continue to publish in top journals, and government be able to do their duty, which is to create impact and serve the people, the most optimal way of doing that is in putting data science in the middle. And because of what is happening now, and given the data that is becoming more and more available to everyone, as digital transformation is accelerated, and that will be my last point. We've been hearing a lot of inspiring stories and meaningful collaboration between industry, academia, and government. For example, I've been in the middle of a collaboration between government, industry, and academia in developing a ventilator. So it's quite expensive initially, but in a record time of less than a month, they were able to develop a ventilator that is now being rolled out here in the Philippines. And I think we have been seeing a lot of tech startups in the country. And this is, again, another interesting development. I'm sure there are also a lot of development in India. But given the agility of Turkish startup, it started to provide a challenge, create a challenge to the usual monopoly of the bigger companies in the country. And as a result of such, I think we are seeing a potential more inclusive society once this COVID-19 ends. But most of the highlight of my presentation is how Access Laboratory specifically help in this so-called digital transformation. As Erika shown a while ago, most of the companies that we work with prior to COVID-19 are the bigger companies, the multinational companies in the Philippines. But now we as I will be showing in a while, the companies that have been doing digital transformation, it becomes a need for most companies to do digital transformation. And therefore, the projects that I will be highlighting will look at what we have done to those companies. So these are the as part of AIM's Master of Science in Data Science. The culminating activity, or one of the highlights, is in creating or producing a capstone, data science capstones. And how we do it in the MSDS, or the Master of Science in Data Science here at AIM, is we ask companies, industries, or different organizations to define a specific problem, scope a specific problem, and ask our students to work on that problem. Now, one of the main difference, and I think we are one of the very few in the world who was able to execute this very well, is that the companies actually have to spend some sort of a payment. They should, if they are a big company, they normally use up $10,000 to become part of this capstone. And the main reason for that, the reason why we are doing that, of course, the amount that the Access Lab is charging is about 10 times higher than that. But we want them to have a buy-in to make sure that they will be part of the students' journey. Okay, so that they will not abandon the students while they're doing their capstone thesis. At the same time, we have a full-time data scientist at Access Lab who are mentoring them. That includes me and Erika. Erika, if you at any point in time, please jump in if you would like to discuss anything. So for the pioneering batch, these are some of the problems that they work with the different institutions. Of the 12 groups, about 7 of them were sponsored by various companies, and the result is very much it's a big success. Our students were able to generate $10 million annual increase in revenue in the revenue of our partners. And this number was not just provided by our students. These numbers were provided by the C-level executives of those different companies. Now, pre-COVID-19, because of the success of this first batch, for the second batch, more than 28 organizations propose different problems to our students, about 28 of them, and we only have 15 groups. So these are just some of the names of the companies that have engaged us. Some of the other multinational companies requested us not to put their logo for some reason. But these are just some of the companies, and I'm happy to say, and I will be describing some of those cases in my presentation today, that the total amount of increase in the revenue of our partners for this batch was more than $40 million. Greater. This is a conservative number. Again, numbers provided by the C-level executives partners that we have, and this is one thing that we realize is one of the advantages of having an online learning on online courses. Most of the leads and heads of those businesses actually joined us during the presentations of our students about their final project. So actual cases, I will be now presenting some actual cases from the class, so you will have a better appreciation of what data science can do and how is this useful even in the times of this pandemic. So this is an example of the work that we have done with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. This is the Central Bank of the Philippines. The Central Bank of the Philippines is the institution responsible for making sure that the other financial institutions in the country will follow a certain guideline. And every quarter, more than 500 financial institutions are being policed by the Central Bank of the Philippines. Typically, to understand the financial statement, etc., of the different banks, one account they will, according to the employees of Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, they will allocate 40 man-hours. And if you are looking at 500 accounts every quarter, this translates to 20,000 man-hours. Okay, but using or combining artificial intelligence and network science, and of course, a close discussion with domain experts, we were able to create a technology that lessen this 20,000 man-hours to 11 minutes. No, that is about 99.99% reduction in processing time. And the Central Bank of the Philippines heads told us that this is a technology that we hope we had 10 years ago, 10 years back. Now, going into the current students, set of students, capstones of current students, one of the companies who sponsored our capstone project is the Asian Development Bank of the Philippines, where I think about 6 of our pioneering batch actually now they are now working with ADB here in base here, of course, but they are they have a global appointment. The thing that they have done is on trying to forecast GDP, especially in the absence of an economic data. So what they've done is to look at the news and all the other potential proxies for the economic data, and what they have demonstrated is that they can forecast better than by more than 13.6 the mean absolute error compared to that of a consensus forecast. Typically, a consensus forecast made up collected by Bloomberg, made up of some of the top economists in the region, is one of the most difficult forecasts to beat. So by combining artificial intelligence, network science, and natural language processing, looking at the news items, etc., our students were able to forecast the GDP with such an accuracy. But not just that, they were able to demonstrate that they can create an almost automatic unbiased interpretation of the results. What are the things that drive this increase in GDP or decrease in GDP? And especially, this has been very useful now that most of the economic indicators, or most of the economic data are not coming, but the news continues to come. So this is another project that I'm very happy about. Okay, I'm seeing somebody doing annotation in my screen. This is a problem that includes a Christian organization. Okay, they have more than about 2 billion pesos. So that will be about 50 to 100 million. That will be about what is 1 billion, Erika?
Sorry, no, I'm not very good at like.
Okay, it's about anyway. It's 1 billion pesos. That should translate to about around $200 million. If my math is wrong, if my math is correct, around $200 million that they allow creditors to loan from annually. But as a Christian organization, they do not want to be biased or selective in granting these loans. So anyone who needs help, they give it to them. And the question that they ask is, well, hopefully that these individuals will eventually pay us. But with this organization joining us, we helped them in understanding from the onset what is the chance that one individual, even without being selective in the granting loans, what is the chance that that person will default, and whether we can do an intervention, okay, during the time that they've used that they borrowed that specific loan. Now, this is a very unique data in a sense that most of the data that you will see has a very strong bias towards those who will not default, because you reject them at the first instance when they are asking for loan. But the reason why I like this specific project is that this organization do not differentiate between those who are capable of paying versus those who are not capable of paying. And we help them in improving their ability to increase the number of people who will pay back. This is another project that I would like to highlight. This is a project that we've done with one of a Fortune 500 company. In fact, they are top one in the product category that they are carrying. And in their production, one of the biggest problem that they have are identifying what are the reason for the inefficiency of the different components of the machines, people, etc., that they are using. And with the mentorship of the Access Lab and some of our students, we were able to understand that there are certain parts of the production and processes that if you focus on that, you will be able to reduce the noise and therefore improve the efficiency of the system. When the students presented this to the management, and they've been engaging the management during the entire quarantine period, the results have been counterintuitive in a sense that they have never thought about those things. They were able to duplicate the approximation of the company on other aspect, but the counterintuitive result, according to the heads of this institution, is a source of a game-changing innovation and can potentially give them a huge improvement in revenue because they will then lessen the amount of they will then improve the efficiency of their processes. Another example that I would like to highlight, this is something that we have done even before COVID, trying to forecast the water level of Angat Dam. So Angat Dam is the provider of water for more than 1 million households in Metro Manila. But prior to us doing something for Manila Water, they can only do prediction 2 weeks ahead. The problem with a 2 weeks ahead prediction is that you cannot do so much intervention if the water, the level of water is falling, or if the amount of water is too high. You also don't want that because that can cause flash floods. So we have created a system for them to forecast the water level 6 months ahead. And as a result, and since water is a very essential component, so you can see here our forecast. This is more than a year after we have we provided the platform to Manila Water. You can see that the forecast of our the systems that we developed for them is quite good. So in particular, you are looking here at the black solid line, that is the forecast of the system that we develop, and the dashed line is the actual water level of Angat Dam. And this is the system a year after we have provided the system to Manila Water. In fact, they won the Innovation Award because of this system. One of the main reasons is because of this platform that we've developed for them. And as a result, since water is an essential an essential commodity during this time. Okay, sorry. Okay. We work with them and the Philippine government to make sure that we will be able to prevent or at least minimize the impact of potential water shortage in the entire Metro Manila. Metro Manila is has more than 15 million. The total population is more than 15 million, and about 40 to 50% of the GDP of the country are actually based in are actually centered in Metro Manila. So this is one of the very first collaboration between the academe, government, and the industry that we hope will be a story of success, showing how this triple helix, if they collaborate together, will be able to create they will be able to satisfy all their KPIs and greater than if they will not be working together. So this is another project that we have started during COVID-19, and this is the first smart city project funded by the Philippine government, and this is a collaboration with one of the city far north of the Philippines. This is Isabela, Kawayan City, Isabela, and here, okay, we pivot in understanding how the different economic component can thrive in the presence of this pandemic. So this will be my last two slides. So this is the main advocacy of the Access Lab, as we have demonstrated in the different examples. We want to be the bridge, and at the same time, we want to lead in using data to create models such that in doing so, we can create more opportunities. Because we understand now that opportunities are best harnessed if we have a transdisciplinary approach with data at the center. So the way we define data science is that it is the science of data, trying to understand the science that the data will produce, and in the process, hopefully it will be able to bring value to different organizations. So we are dealing with a very complex issue, and we need a systems of systems approach, and for us to be able to make sure that we understand these different components, we cannot just understand them in isolation. We need to understand them together. So with this, I hope I was able to demonstrate to you how data science will not just be useful in this new normal, but hopefully we'll be able to create a better normal using data science. So with that, I will end my presentation, and me and Prof. Erika will be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Erika. There are questions here, which
yes, please.
Go through. One is from Suhail. There are three questions. The first question is, data science at scale is a challenge given investment required and time to market takes 1 to 5 years. Do you have a framework for scaling after starting small? That's the first question. Would you like to answer one by one, or how would you like to go about it?
Yeah, maybe you can collect all the questions, and yes, in the interest of time, maybe me and Prof. Legara can answer them all.
Fine. So the first question is, what is the framework for scaling after starting small? And the second question, I think Suhail is into data science, because he says, my experience with clients globally leads me to believe that the need for data science starts with a decision that needs to be taken more efficiently or in a time-sensitive manner, as opposed to a research question. For example, how can we improve our model for demand planning or supply chain throughput or route planning to make it either cheaper? Do you have a framework, playbook that can help businesses go through this journey, starting from a decision into discovery? That is one. And last is, does AIM have a collaborative offering like a sandbox where we can come explore capabilities and outcomes before we can co-create together?
Okay. Wow, these are really good questions. Chris, I can take a stab on the
Yeah, please,
first
please.
questions.
Go ahead.
Maybe the second one first. Very good question. In fact, yes, we do have a playbook, Suhel. We do digital transformation, and we always emphasize that you have to start with the use cases, which is what you're talking about here exactly. And when Chris and I say that we start with a research question, what we really mean is that this research question is a use case question that's coming from the business. Because that is the only way that you can truly get the buy-in of the executives. In fact, we always emphasize asking the right analytics questions. So in our playbook, we have two different timelines that are parallel. The first timeline is the low-hanging fruit, right? So we need to work on low-hanging fruit. This is like from 4 months to 6 months, so that when you're successful, you have something to show the finance department or maybe the C-level executive, so that they're much more convinced that indeed this is the way to go. So that is one. And then the other one is truly building capabilities in-house, because at the end of the day, if you want to have data science within your organization, it's really a cultural change. And for that to happen, you have to sort of like educate at different levels the different employees of the organization. So yes, we do have a playbook, and it's much more complex and lengthy, the digital transformation one. On the collaborative offering, yes, in fact, what Chris showed earlier, the capstone projects, that's exactly what it is. So if your organization is interested in solving a use case using data and data science, and you want to collaborate with AIM, that is definitely one way to go. Another way to go is to go directly to Access Lab, and we are very much open to explore projects with you. It could range from 6 months to a year to 18 months, especially if you have a research question, meaning a use case in mind that you want to solve. Chris, you want to add anything?
Yeah, as Erika mentioned a while ago, and Nikhil mentioned during our when he introduced us, prior to joining AIM, we are part of the Singapore's think tank, and essentially a good portion of our time is spent in trying to solve the problems given to us by the companies in Singapore. What we did here in the Access Lab is to bring that same team in solving various problems, and the significance of the capstone really is to make sure that it will start the ball rolling for different companies by creating a story of success. I think that is the most important in all the things that we've been doing, making sure that they will be able to create a system, a platform, a technology that will be useful for a good portion of the company. And if we can do that, then digital transformation, which is essentially a cultural transformation, becomes simpler and easier for the management.
And thank you, Chris. The first question is a bit tough. You're right. Data science at scale is indeed a challenge. And what we suggest, we haven't really had, Chris, right? Something that's been developed for more than 3 years. We had one project with the Singapore government, but for this to be scaled, really, number one, you need the buy-in, because you need to have continuous investment. To be honest, once investment is cut within the first 2 years, then it will be difficult to scale. And what we really do is, whenever we work on projects, we urge the organization who we are working with to deploy some of their employees to our team, so that we get to co-learn from each other. And that is how we sort of like spread the culture. But at the same time, which is out of the scope of data science, you need software developers for this one. But yeah, ultimately, you need the support of the leadership, because if it takes around 1 to 5 years, they need to be truly convinced that it's worth the investment. Your first phrase is really correct, that data science at scale is a challenge, and there's no one size fits all answer to this specific question. Thank you.
Thanks, Erika. There's a question from Mohan. He says that one of the slide by Erika said that data science quantify employee performance. What we require is a culture, a process that motivates employees to enhance to perform better, high performers or star performers. Then he mentions about people capability maturity model by Dr. Bill Curtis established such a culture, especially in new economic era companies. So how do we make data science to surpass people capability maturity model?
That is a tough question. So at the end of the day, Mohan, this is also what I emphasize to our business analytics students at AIM from EMBA and MBA. It's really, at the end of the day, artificial intelligence mimics, right? That's the very idea, mimics how humans actually perform, or how humans decide on certain things. So whether or not, like when you do your employee performance, the machine is essentially copying how HR decides on your employees. So what it does, it automates the way you decide on things.
Maybe yeah.
Yes.
Maybe just to, sorry, Erika, just to add on that, and looking at the actual results of the students that we have, one critical component we realize for the performance is very much dependent on the timing, on how you will be able to time certain tasks. And to of course, we understand that there is a cultural dependence on how you make sure that someone will be very dedicated to the company and will be able to give you the best results, but understanding also at the same time the best timing to give to tell someone of a given task is one of the key differentiator of the solutions that was provided by AI. Secondly, and this is something that I would like to emphasize, from our experiences, one of the real benefit of having an artificial intelligence in a company is that it lessens conflict. It lessens conflict, and I think that always it has a very positive lowering of conflict. Always translate to positive productivity of the workforce. How does it lessen conflict? Because in the presence of data and artificial intelligence, people are more agreeable on where to go, and they are more aligned because of such. Because as what we've been saying, opinion versus opinion, loud voice will win. But opinion versus data, typically data will have a very good chance, even if that is from a weaker voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to add to that, the slide in particular on quantifying employee performance, Mohan, it was really looking at the different variables and different features of a certain employee, of all the employees, sorry. And it's the other way around. It's predicting whether or not that person will resign. But on your question on how we can enhance the performance, we need to have to look at specifically the features that are predictors, the high impact predictors in this task of predicting, again, whether or not someone will resign in a company. We can talk more in detail if you are interested in this model.
And I will share your coordinates with Mohan. He's MM97. He's 60 plus, but very young at heart. So
wow.
At every webinar, he has all these deep questions. So next question is from Kiran Patil. Have you done any project for venture capitalists or private equity funds?
Equity fund, Chris?
Well, actually, that's the favorite project, the favorite individual project of our students. Predicting stocks, forecasting stocks. I'm inviting you to the different machine learning and deep learning presentations of our students. We will communicate through Nick Hill. And that is one of the favorite project, private equity. How do you choose the basket of the different stocks? How do you forecast this? How do you do strategies? So understanding when a strategy of quick buy and sell is better compared to just holding for a long time, understanding all this volatility, etc. But and we've been in fact there are we two of our students were sponsored by a private equity firm.
Exactly. I was gonna say,
Uh-huh.
and we had one project, Karen, that looked into the success of startup companies using data science and artificial intelligence.
This is a question from Malini Shankar. Malini Shankar is a recent AAA awardee from India, and she was retired as a top government official in water conservation and water resources. So her question is that, is it possible to have more details on the forecast of water level at dams? Because for Malini, water conservation is a passion. So she has also shared her email with that, but it just go right.
I think
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the most important component here, we can discuss this offline, but the most important component here is to involve Manila Water, because right now, while water is a public utility in the Philippines, it has been privatized, and the information that we are getting, the sensors that that Manila Water plays in the different areas here, they own the data. But I'm sure they will be happy to discuss this with you, as Manila Water, as a result of these different innovation initiatives. One of their goal is to be global. So in fact, they have now operation in Myanmar, Vietnam, etc. And yes, so the short answer is we can have an offline conversation with the executives of Manila Water, and I'm sure they are very open to possible collaborations
But we
and
can
discussion.
also give a non-detailed, high-level discussion of the approach.
Yes,
for
of course.
sure.
Uh-huh.
For sure. This is time series analysis, and we can definitely discuss with you how you can collect the data, at a high level.
There's a question from Ramesh. It's in two parts. The first question is, what softwares do you use? Would you recommend using? And the MSDS course also cover data visualizations?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. So the software, we teach our students to be software agnostic. So that's one of the strengths of MSDS, meaning our students can switch from one software to another. But our main programming language is Python. And for visualization, we use Tableau. And yes, we do have a data visualization and storytelling class. In fact, you might be happy to know that we're also teaching the data visualization and storytelling now with the MBAs and EMBAs as an elective. But within the MSDS, it's indeed part of the curriculum.
In fact, it's one of it is part of the first term, because it's so critical. It's so important that the students must be able to tell a story from all the data that they have. That is the way to communicate their results. That is the communicate to their stakeholders how they will proceed and how they can create value, or how to see value in all the data that their stakeholders will be giving them.
There's a question from Ravindra. What use cases for CPG in retail, marketing, or sales?
There's a lot.
Yeah,
we have a lot. We have a lot. We have a lot.
Demand prediction, to be honest. It's really demand prediction, and also something to do with logistics, like where are we going to place our next shop, or how do we place, for example, our factory so that we are much more efficient in terms of delivering the goods. But mostly demand prediction, even the arrangement of products along the aisles of stores. So
yeah,
more than a handful.
So I mentored one group whose task really is on conversion. Make sure that those groups or individuals or company will buy into your product, and It includes natural language processing, understanding the culture of that company at an instant. This specific company is actually initially a startup, but most of their clients are based abroad, and they are very happy with the results that they've got. And according to them, they can now they decided to have 2 spin-offs as a result of the capstone project that they have with our students.
There's a question from Rohit. This is a question normally we at MBA used to have at AIM long time back. Once the AIM project is completed, how are the companies maintaining the models that the students create? Given a lot of companies do not have in-house data science teams yet.
Okay, very good question, Nikhil. Sorry, Rohit as well. What usually happens is that the companies would either hire the students to the company, or they will continuously they will pay a retainer fee if they don't have their own data scientists in-house. So they would pay a retainer fee to the students, and if our students agree to work for them after they graduate as a consultant, then that's usually what happens. But at the end of all of our engagements, there's always a turnover of knowledge. So our students would spend about a day or two to the companies to explain to them at a very high level what the machine models, the algorithms that go behind the models, and a very complete manual, so that the whole process is reproducible at the end of the day.
So
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the capstone has been so successful, and the impact of the different companies has been so successful that we don't need to sell it to get possible sponsors. In fact, as I mentioned a while ago, 28 companies scope a project for our students, but we only have 15 groups. So what happened is that each of the companies will try to pitch why their company should be chosen by the students. Because again, as Erika mentioned, one of the things that we want to have, and those are the things that we prioritize in the Access Lab, given our bandwidth, are those that will translate to successful and impactful stories, okay, in this part of the world.
If your organization has a pain point that you feel that data science can solve, let's have a look at it. In fact, we do help organizations even craft their questions and to make it much more analytics driven. So even at the onset, we can just explore, because at the moment we do have multinational companies, but we don't have companies originating from India, for example, or Bangladesh. So that would be really nice to add to our portfolio. Just think of a use case like the research questions that you had earlier. As long as it can be solved within 4 to 5 months, then we will very much likely take it on.
Thank you, Erika and Chris.
Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you,
with
everyone.
a great deal of frankness and openness. I would like to acknowledge today this is a FAIM webinar, and I'm very happy that today we have amongst us the chapter heads from the Philippines, Bert Manabat. Then we have Anwar Chowdhury from Bangladesh. We have Sugar Han from South Korea. We have 2 FAIM chair emeritus, Dennis Fermentia and Zulkifli Bahro. This looks like a Real Madrid football team now, with all the heavyweights here. And to top it all, we have Jikyeong Kang. So I'll unmute Jikyeong Kang first, and then I'll unmute each one of the FAIM chapter heads so that they can see their piece. Just a second. Yes, Jikyeong, all yours.
Thank you very much. I told Nikhil that I would like to participate to give my support, but I'll try to keep low profile. But while listening to Chris and Erika talk about it, I just want to point out a couple of things. And one is the reputation of any university, institute, program really depends on 3 different areas. So one is knowledge generation. That's done by research and R&D work. And then second area is a knowledge dissemination. This is where, you're not only generating new knowledge, but you have to find a way to let the world know. And that includes academia, as well as industry, government, and all that. So if you are not actually disseminating your knowledge and publishing your work, in the right venues with the right audience, then again, that hampers your reputation. And then third area is really certifying the knowledge transfer. And that's the degree programs and non-degree programs and so on and so forth. So reputable university need to have all three elements going. If you are only teaching knowledge generated by somebody else, then you cannot be a top premier university, top premier institute. It's very important. So teaching, as important as it is, if you are not generating the world-class, new, innovative, state-of-art knowledge, and if you are not finding ways to disseminate to the right audience, then you cannot be a premier university anymore. It might have been 100 years ago, it might have been 50 years ago, but not anymore. So if you look at any of the business school and of course university ranking, research and publication becomes a very, very important aspect of that reputation determination. With that, and that's why I think faculty is very, very important. Getting the high caliber faculty who can not only be very effective and efficient and admired and liked and respected in the classroom, but people like Chris and Erika who are being viewed as pioneers and a top-notch people on research and publications. I think that's extremely important for us to acknowledge that. And then of course the students and alumni go hand in hand. You know, I've just spent 2 hours with our MBA candidates who are hoping to start in our MBA program in September, and many of them in fact coming from India, Bangladesh, and I was very pleased to even 2 Korean students. And I think that says a lot. I think I earlier saw Sugar Han's name here, but for many years we haven't had any Korean candidates interest in our program. But I think because we are now again at the forefront of generating knowledge, and as Erika and Chris talked about earlier, I think the wonderful thing that our A-side Access Lab and our data science are doing is that they are combining this idea of we want to do the top class research. We want to be very effective and efficient in what we do with the students, but also we want to promote industry, government, and private sector collaboration. And I think that's really the best way forward. And during this crisis with the COVID pandemic, I think we have seen again how important it is for academia and industry and government to work together, to put our heads together, to be able to push forward the very, very critical agenda. And I think our new faculty, and I think, you know, Chris and Erika and A-side, which now is taking up almost 1/3 of our revenue of entire institute, and the most number of students, it plays an extremely important role because yes, many of you in the audience got our MBM, which is now calling MBA degree. Some of you got MM degrees, some of you got entrepreneurship and other degrees. But you know, the importance of those degrees will never disappear in a near future. But I think we also need to be mindful of the fact that we need to future-proof our students and graduates. And that means we need to be very much aware of what's happening right now in the world, but also how do we best prepare our students going forward. And no amount of time and excellent in curriculum can prepare our students completely ready for the future. I think one of the things that we really trying to impart with our students is how they are learning to learn on themselves, by themselves. So you know, we cannot teach everything they need to do going forward for 40, 50 years of a career, but teaching them think analytically, critically, and thinking about, you know, Erika mentioned post-industrial revolution, and we talk about artificial intelligence, all of these things actually changing the mindset in terms of how do we actually see the future and future of the job and future of the world. So I'm really, really happy that our MBA program led by Professor Felipe Calderon doing very, very well. You know, we had a few years of students hovering around 50, 60 students, but we're now looking at 90, 100 students, very strong students. But equally important, we are not taking sort of, the view that what we had was good and what we have going at the time, whenever that is going to be, is what's going to get us to the future. I think we always need to think about how do we actually think about the future ahead of us, and think along the line of preparing our students, and think along the line, how do we actually maximize the contribution our professors are making in terms of collaborating with government and so on and so forth, so that we really do our share of being a true architect in today's world. And I think the alumni getting together, and Nikhil has been working very hard trying to bring everybody together to support alumni, but also to support AIM is a very important part of that formula, because as I mentioned during this Zoom meeting with the candidates, one of the questions asked by the participant was, can you give us the names of the most well-known, most successful alumni? Now, we had a very short meeting of 2 hours, and if we had a time, I would really elaborate what do we mean by success, because that always doesn't mean that people who are able to be the CEOs or even the secretaries and whatnot. There are many ways you can define success, but the point there is, students come to AIM, go to any institution because they have a top class professors, because they know that we prepare students very well for them to be able to succeed when they go out of the institute. So I would like to thank Chris and Erika for choosing AIM of all the places they could have moved to. And I think it's really tremendous that we have a really top scientists and top teachers and top researchers at the institution. But I also like to thank Nikhil and his FAIM leadership team to continue to support what AIM is trying to do and what alumni are working on. So thank you.
Thanks, Jikyeong. So today I would like testimonials. You have Bert of Philippine Association. Bert, would you like to say something? Then Haji Zul, because as an alumni network, we should support the school in these trying times. So Bert, you go first.
Yes, thank you, Nikhil, for inviting us into this webinar. It highlights the need for cooperation among all the chapters in FAIM, Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia, of course, India, Bangladesh. Very, very helpful. The webinars like this are very much appreciated, as it provides insights into a new field of study. As Professor Chris has mentioned, it's one of the sexiest jobs in the world now. In fact, it became irresistible after the pandemic. So thank you very much, Professor Chris and Professor Erika, for the informative and enlightening webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Nikhil, and congrats.
Thank you, Bert. Zulkifli Baharo, would you like to say something? Sugar Han, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is my first time to attend the AIM lecture. I think it's quite nice. It's kind of a time for me to be closer with AIM first, the more emotional connection with the school. And maybe I should try to ask other alumni to participate more of this kind of program. I think this is quite nice, because I think all the alumni should try to help the school. It's very nice to see all of you.
Anwar Chowdhury from Bangladesh.
Okay. Very good afternoon. I am happy, in fact, to see this presentation, and thank you to Jikyeong and also FAIM Chairman Nikhil for arranging such an interesting conference. In fact, when I heard that there is no more MM, that was the biggest shock for me. But today, when I saw this presentation Chris and Erika made, so I have now realized why these three new subjects introduced by AIM. And I attended another seminar 2-3 weeks back. But thank you, Erika and Chris. I think the way they presented it, it is very learning for us. So one of my requests to AIM also, or Chris, whether you can take any projects on data science in Bangladesh, because during your presentation, we did see,
Yes,
we are hoping that the Bangladesh students will be increased, and also we can take at least one project on Bangladesh. So thank you, Chris and Erika and Nikhil.
Yes, can I quickly answer that? Definitely Anwar, and that is one of the things that we are trying to do. So most of the companies who approach us are actually multinational companies or based in the US. But we want to get more, especially from developing nations, developing countries like the Philippines and in India. Yes, definitely Anwar. We'll be happy to look into that.
Okay, let us work on that. Yeah.
So,
Thank
Mr. Zunki, okay, he's gone. So thank you very much, Erika, Chris, and Jikyeong for taking out your valuable time on a Sunday and giving us this lovely presentation. We will keep in touch, and FAIM and all the chapters would love to work with the school. We are always at the service of the school for any cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you,
Nikhil. Thank you so much.
and also Chris.
Hi, Anwar. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.